Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of the e-commerce lab by Ecomcy, the place of everything related to Amazon private label and e-commerce. My name is Vincenzo Toscano, founder and CEO of Ecomcy, and today we bring a very special guest. His name is Bradley, and he's director of training and chief evangelist at Helium10. We all know what is Helium10 is. It's pretty much the best tool out there when it comes to helping you, find the products and keywords and basically all the data that you need to scale your Amazon business further. And I think the reason why I wanted to bring Bradley today is because we know we all struggle when it comes to launching a new product on Amazon. And he has an amazing strategy that he's been talking for years now, which is basically the Maldives honeymoon method, which now I believe we are the 3.0 iteration, right? So it's been evolving over time. So can't wait to see what is new with this new version. But yeah, before we jump into that, I want to welcome you, Bradley. Thank you for being here. How you doing, my friend?
Thank you for having me. Doing just great here. Just talking about how we're freezing here in California, but that's like like 50 degrees Fahrenheit. It is
Uh,
like ice cold, and that's like 8 degrees Celsius or
yeah.
something. But
Yeah, I
if it
mean,
was like that over there, you'd be in your t-shirt and going outside
I
sun
know,
tanning.
I know. I hear for us in the UK, I mean, as soon as we go above 4 or 5 degrees, people go out, like they go to the parks. As soon as we see a little bit of sunshine,
No.
you see like British going out, like, like rabbits. When they see sunshine, they go out to grab it.
Yeah.
Because here in the UK, we don't have a lot of that, but it is what it is. So, awesome. So, I mean, before we jump into the technical stuff and all the strategy that I bet a lot of people want to jump right away, I know a lot of people already know in the space, but still, have new people in the community that want to know who is Bradley and get inspired by your story, because I definitely think you can definitely learn a lot from your background and what you have done so far. So maybe you can give us a little bit of that and how you landed into Helium 10. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a consultant actually before I was a seller. Like I didn't even become a seller on Amazon until I worked at Helium 10, but I had launched over 400 products for other people.
Yeah.
And how I got on the roadmap of Helium 10 was I was using Helium 10, not for very long. Like I was using other tools before Helium 10, and then I started using Helium 10 when I was a consultant, and then I would go into their Facebook groups, and what I have a lot of pet peeves, and like one of them is when people are giving like wrong information or trying to like
Mm-hmm.
mislead people, whether it's on purpose or not. Like
Yeah.
that's always been something that bothered me. So I wasn't getting any money from Helium 10 those days, but I was like known to be the one guy who would go into their Facebook group and like kind of like set people's right
Call
and start
people off.
arguments.
Yeah.
Yeah, arguments and stuff, that kind. And then the at the time the owners, the previous or the founders of Helium 10 are like, who is this guy? So like, well, they found out I live not
You
like an
made
hour
some
away.
nice.
Yeah. And they're like, hey, come meet us. And then, long story short, they offered me a job, and then, yeah, I came on and I came to Helium 10 and started. So, I had to stop doing consulting because I didn't have any time. But then I was like, wait a minute, like,
Hmm.
like I 2 weeks into that, I'm like, there's no way that I can, keep my knowledge fresh or like
Yeah,
be an educator in this space if I'm not in the game,
doing it.
So I was like,
Hmm.
that's when I started.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think that is an amazing journey, because I feel like you have seen everything from from everything that's happening in the back end of all these Facebook groups, where people is complaining about all the bad strategies,
Sure.
all the good strategies, and that help you build that knowledge that you're sharing nowadays with the amazing podcast you have going on.
Thank you.
So now, let's get started with the topic, which is basically, the Maldives honeymoon methodology to launch products. So, as we already mentioned, we already are in the third version of the method. So I know a lot of things have changed, especially with policies changing in Amazon. You need to keep adapting and things that you do on a daily basis to keep launching products. And I would like to use this opportunity, to pick your brain here, hear your
Mhm.
take around what is the best method right now, and what are some of the results you have seen. If you can say that, yeah.
Yeah. So just a brief history on how it got started. Like and
Yeah.
first of all, this is not some official name. I just made this up. But how I made it up, how I came to it, it was for at least 5 years, I would say people talk about the honeymoon period on
Yeah.
Amazon.
Still.
Yeah, Helium 10 was not the person or was not the company that made
Yeah.
that term up, but it's standard in the industry that there's this like honeymoon period where the first couple of months, like things that happen to a listing have a much bigger effect than like say the same exact thing that happens to a mature listing that's a couple years old or something. And so my specialty when I was a consultant was always launching. I wasn't doing PPC. I wasn't doing the product research. I was 100% like doing the keyword research and covering the launch of a product. And so I would always try and get the most bang for my buck out of the honeymoon period because I knew that's the best ROI. And then I noticed way back then, like sometimes, I would always use a honeymoon period, but sometimes it would be like the honeymoon period on steroids. Like one little thing I did,
and boom,
would just like explode, and it was kind of like on accident. The first few times, I was like, man, this is crazy. Like, how can I make this happen on purpose? The honeymoon period is already good, but if I can do this, and get to here, it's like I gotta duplicate this. It can't be just hit or miss. And so I tried to figure out, reverse engineer different things that were happening on how I could get that, and then that's how I was like, okay, I got this as a formula now. And then what do I call this? And I was like, okay, I Googled like what is the most amazing honeymoon you could take. And it was the Maldives honeymoon. At the time I had never been to the Maldives, and so I actually flew to the Maldives. I'd never been there, and then I recorded the podcast episode, and I was like, all right, we're gonna name this the Maldives honeymoon method. So that's the origin of it.
And I think you do it often now. You go often there and you record this episode, I think once per year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, like usually every 50 episodes, like on the, like it started on episode 200, so then I did 200, 250, 300, 350, and we just finished 400. So this year I'm not sure if I'm going to do 450 again. Like it's kind of fast coming up, but I'm not sure if I have enough mileage points. Helium10 doesn't pay for me to go to Maldives. I know. But,
yeah, actually, I was having a look at your last episode that you put in YouTube with video, and I was seeing the room you were saying that, man, is crazy under the water.
yeah, that's a crazy room, but Conrad Maldives. But anyways, that's the origin of the name. Now, how the basic structure of it hasn't changed much, and again, the point of it is, how can we spend as little as possible, relatively speaking, and have the most bang for our buck to really take advantage of that honeymoon period? Now, the core things though have changed, like as we all know, over the last couple of years, you can't do you can't do search, find, buy, and two-step URLs and things, and those were part of the original Maldives honeymoon method. But the idea behind it is the same, and that is you want to force people who search a certain keyword to buy your product. And then that will send Amazon those signals that, hey, this is a great product for this keyword, and then theoretically, increase it. And so one of the core tenets of this is, first of all, even before you choose a product, like if you wanted to have a good idea about how expensive or how difficult or hard it might be to get to page one of the first things that you should look at is in the keyword or keywords of a niche, that you're investigating. Check what we call the title density. Title density is another made-up word by us. This is not some Amazon word, but basically how we define it is how many products on page one of the search results of this keyword have that exact keyword in phrase form. For example, if you were to look at the title density of collagen peptides, it's probably 40. And what that means is, out of the 50 organic listings on page one, when you search collagen peptides, probably 40 of them have collagen peptides as an exact phrase in the title. And that doesn't mean that it's impossible to get to page one, but you just know that
you need money.
You need a lot of money to get there. It's gonna be hard. Now, contrast that with something like off the wall, like coffin bookshelf or something. The title density might be 2, and that basically means if you search coffin bookshelf, only 2 listings on the entirety of page one have the word coffin bookshelf in phrase form, meaning that if you're not, you could potentially on day one, without even one sale, if you have that keyword in phrase form in your title, you potentially could be on page one without doing anything. But even if you're not on page one, it's going to be super simple, very cheap to get to that top level because of how much relevancy Amazon assigns to the keywords that are in your title.
That's awesome. And now, I totally agree with you with the fact that, finding these gaps like in the market where you can go in and penetrate the competition is super important, because I totally agree that at the beginning, people when they're launching a product, they usually want to go for the keyword with the highest search volume and the most competitive ones, because they think that's where the money is. But yes, if you find keywords like the collagen cup type that they have 40 people using it, it's like you're gonna struggle to get there on page one. Now, at the same time, people may ask themselves this question, which is, how do I find these keywords? And maybe you can help us, give us some insight around how you can find the keywords that have this opportunity, and use them in your listing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, you could just manually do it. Like maybe you find
Crazy.
something on Google,
Yeah.
a keyword, but then you go to Amazon and just do a Control F and try and see how many is on. But
I don't advise it.
yeah, that's a little bit tedious. We laugh about that now, but like 7 years ago, before there was Helium10 and other tools, like that's all that people could do. But in Helium10, we in our keyword research tools, we have a toggle for title density. So like you could be doing any keyword research in Magnet or Cerebro, and there's a title density filter where you're like, hey, show me the keywords that came out in this list that are less than X title density. But black box is the best way that I do it, because in black box, and it's the second tab, not the first tab. I think 90% of people probably use the first tab of black box, which is products. But the second tab is called keywords, and I can enter in characteristics of a keyword. So what I like to do is I'll be like, hey, show me a keyword, and there's no magic number here, but that has at least 2,000 search volume, or 5,000, or between 8 and 10,000. I put whatever I want, and then a title density less than 5 is what I usually like to pick. And then I just start going. I might not find the end result right there in the results, but I can usually go down some rabbit trails.
Start filtering. Yeah,
exactly. Start filtering down, and then seeing other characteristics. But that's the way that I like to search for it. Now that's a way of searching, but it's not like, oh no, you know what? You should never in 2023 launch any product that has a high title density. That's not what I'm trying to say. It's just, if you're looking for something to kind of give you a little bit leg up on the competition when you launch, this is it. But like I said, like let's say you have a collagen peptides that cures cancer. Well, it doesn't matter what the title density is or how many reviews people have. Everybody's still gonna gonna buy your product.
Yeah, that's good. And on top of that, I would like to ask you, these keywords, I know you're filtering based on title density, but maybe people come up with 10, 20 keywords, and the reality is sometimes you don't have the opportunity to add them all in the title. So how would you advise to give the priority? It would be in search volume, it would be in relevancy. How you go about that? Yeah.
So like if I'm trying to think about a new niche to get into or a new product.
Yeah, let's say you have the 20 keywords, right? That they have title density under 5, but on the title we can all fill them, right? So it's limited space. So how would you choose which ones? It would be based on the highest search volume, or how you.
So search volume definitely is key. Like something could have a title density of 0, but if it's searched for 200 times, who cares? That means nobody's buying it. So the other thing that I like to do at the keyword level, and this is why almost all of my product research now is done at keyword level. Like I don't really search for products that much. I always search for keywords. But we have this filter. Like I like to look at what's going on in the top 10 organic positions, because usually that's where your competition is at. We have some filters in Helium10. I know other tools have the same thing. Everybody kind of start. Helium10 wasn't even the first with this, but where you can like say, hey, show me keywords where on average on page 1 this is happening. Like you could do that in Helium10 now, and hundreds, thousands of people do that. I like to skip that filter about the average of page 1, and I like to go down to the very bottom. There's these what we have called advanced filters, and that's just hyper focused on the top 10 listings. And so what I like to do is look for characteristics only in the top 10. When I say top 10, that means organic positions 1 through 10, not top 10 sales of different things. Like, for example, I could say like, hey, show me a keyword with blank title density, blank search volume. And then where at least 6 out of the top first 10 products have less than 75 reviews.
I love that filter.
And at least 5 have at least $5,000 revenue. That's just an example of one of the ones that you can do. And it kind of like really further, furthers that or laser focuses that search.
Good. So now we are at this stage that we have the keywords, we have identified the ones that are going to give us the best, opportunity to enter this market. And let's say we finalize the listing optimization. So at this stage, what would you say is the next step to, get the most out of this launch? What would be the next phase of it?
Well, there's like little things here or there that I like to do, as far as the
Mm-hmm.
listing optimization goes, because like there's some key points there. Like obviously your main keywords you got to have in phrase form. I like doing it at least 2 times each, for my top 5 phrases,
Okay.
and the ones that and I try and nest keywords in the title and other places. So like for example,
Okay.
I might have multiple keywords. I'm like, hey, these are great keywords, and it could be egg tray, wooden egg tray for kitchen, something like that. If I put wooden egg tray for kitchen
Mm-hmm.
in phrase form in my title or somewhere else, I'm getting credit for all of those phrases because they're just components of each other. And
Yeah,
so
they
it's
combine.
important to do that instead of just looking at, okay, I have this keyword, I need to get this somewhere in my listing, this other keyword, let me put it somewhere. You get more bang for your buck when you nest phrases like that. And
So,
then additionally, I want to make sure that when I launch, Amazon like kind of like assigns, or not assigns, but kind of like equates my listing with as many other listings as possible. Because when you first launch, Amazon algorithm doesn't really know what you're going to be relevant for. All it has to
mm-hmm.
go on, because it has no buyer behavior to look at, all it has to go on
Mm-hmm.
is your listing copy and like how it relates to existing listings, right? And so that's important for PPC, like in your auto and broad campaigns. It's important for that, for how wide of a net Amazon will cast, because in the honeymoon period, sometimes Amazon is more liberal with how it shows you in PPC because it's trying to give you a leg up. But if it's like, oh, this is only relevant to like a coffin shelf, it's going to be limited to kind of like how many other keywords. So what I like to do is I look at the like frequently bought together
Mm-hmm.
from the products, the existing competition, and then look at that history, and then pick like some important ones. Like for example, if you were to do that on a coffin
Yeah.
shelf, you might see something like a bat shelf, or you might see something like a coffin.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had one here because I was looking at it. It was crazy. A coffin, a bathroom mat. Like people are doing
Wow,
coffin everything
that's
nowadays, right?
crazy.
That's
Yeah.
not your competitor. You're not
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
gonna normally you're not gonna like tweak your keyword
Yeah.
strategy based on a irrelevant product. But what I do is, if I see that they're commonly bought together with my competitors, I know there's already people buying those together. So what I'll do is I'll go into that individual listing and get their 5 best keywords. For coffin
Mm-hmm.
shelf, I'm doing a lot deeper research. I'm finding the 15
Mm-hmm.
best keywords. I'm finding the secondary 200 keywords and looking at brand analytics and everything else. But for these complementary products, I'm going to take their top 5, like where they're ranked in like the top 5 or top 10 and highest search volume. And I'm going to try and get those keywords in phrase form somewhere in my listing, so that
Mm.
from day one, Amazon is relating me to these products. And
Yeah.
then what's going to happen is from day one, instead of waiting for buyer behavior to show that my product is related to them, which is it's going to happen anyways. It means from
Yeah.
day one, my relevancy is to those products for the Amazon algorithm. So now Amazon is showing me, on auto campaigns for those products,
Yeah.
keywords. I can target them from day one. Sometimes everybody always says like, hey, I know this keyword is important, but I target it and Amazon's not giving me impressions, or I'm targeting this in a
Mm.
sponsored display campaign or a product targeting campaign, but Amazon's not giving me impressions, is because
Yeah.
Amazon thinks you're
History.
not relevant.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think that tip around finding accessories and related keywords is very important, because I mean, I have seen that a lot of times, that when we do product audits, we find that the product is doing a huge amount of revenue, but when we actually analyze where the revenue sometimes is coming, you will be surprised that you could find it's coming from keywords that it doesn't define the product
Yep.
exactly, but just a very broad keyword, and it's what we call an outlier keyword, and they're
Mhm.
ranking on a very broad category, and that is what is driving the traffic to that niche. And that's why in competitor eyes, they always think how they're making so many sales if there isn't so much search volume in the actual keywords of the niche, but it's
Yep.
because they're getting from these related keywords, which is a good thing. Now, okay, so let's say we then identify everything in terms of these extra keywords, and we finalize everything in terms of which keywords we're gonna launch for. I guess the next step would be around how we design the PPC campaigns. So
Yeah.
here, what would your advice? Would your advice just to start with manual campaigns like exact match, or you combine it with phrase and broad and auto? What is your experience with that?
Yeah. So one quick thing before the PPC campaigns, and this is a kind of minor thing, but I personally, and I'll give you guys a counterpoint to this, but I personally don't create my listing until I'm ready to sell it the next day. Meaning that, you know, a lot of us, you know, like if we don't have our own warehouse, I have my own warehouse right here behind my house. That's why I bought this property. It was like so convenient, you know.
Amazing.
So a lot of us don't have that. And so like what we normally do, or even if we do have our own warehouse or 3PL or something, what we do is we create the listing because we have to be able to get the FN SKU for our Chinese or Indian factories to put on the box, right? But what happens is sometimes that kind of like can kill the honeymoon period if the listing is kind of active on the back end, even though it's not really active.
Usually, you know, so what I do is,
you know, yeah, I don't start. I mean, I write my listing like in Helium10 or whatever tool I'm going to use, you know, and then I only start it the day that I can start getting sales, and you can do that because I always dual list my listings, FBM and FBA. And so if I turn on my listing, or create a listing, it's ready that same day with FBM because I can fulfill out of my warehouse while my product is going to Amazon from here. So I have my product go from China to my warehouse here. And then I make the listing, label everything, send it to Amazon. But the same day I'm already getting sales. And that like kind of like shows Amazon like, hey, look at this listing. It was just created and it's already getting sales. That's another thing that spikes the algorithm. But for those who don't have their own warehouse or they can't do that, what other people do, and this works like 95% of the time as well, is just, you know, make sure to set your launch date in the future or your go live date. And it kind of has the same effect.
It's like a trick. Yeah. Good.
So then for that day one, it's important, you know, now that we have no search. In the old days, search, find, buy was so easy. You know, I would use companies like AZ Rank, and then I would just tell them, hey, Alina is the owner of, I don't know if she's, you should have her on the show if you've never, she's never been here.
Sure.
But I would just say, all right, Alina, I need, you know, for coffin shelf keyword, I need 8 people to buy this over, you know, or I need 3 people on day 1 and 5 people on day 2. And like, that's it. That's all I have to do. And it happens. Boom, I'm on page 1. It's so easy in those old days, right?
Yeah.
But then that became out against terms of service. And so, but what I do now is 100% through PPC, but it's basically the same thing. So the fact is, how do you force people, in other words, to buy your product after the search of a keyword, even though, you know, you have 0 reviews and you know, whatever the case is. And so the formula that I found is you have to find a price point where it doesn't matter that nobody heard of your brand or that they, you know, that you have 0 reviews, but people are almost forced to buy it because they're like, man, I don't know about this, but like this price, like it's worth a try, right? And there's no answer about what, you know, there's no one answer for every product. So like, let's say it's a coffin shelf. Like if I were to launch another coffin shelf today, that price would probably be, you know, let's say it's a $30 coffin shelf. To me, that price would maybe be $14 or something like that. All right.
Yeah.
I'm like, because I know this niche pretty well.
50%
like, hey,
pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, you know what? But 50% is not always needed. Sometimes you have to go more. Sometimes you have to go less. But I'm like, you know what? I know this niche pretty well that if somebody saw a $15 coffin shelf, they would be like, oh, I got to give this a try. Right. So what I do is that I set a sale price. I set a sale price or a coupon. There's no like, you know, one way to do that. And then I target like 5 or 10 of my launch keywords with a very high bid. And then I make sure I'm at the top. So, you know, I don't have to go checking every page. I'll put those keywords into, you know, Helium10 keyword tracker. I'll turn the boost on, which is that little rocket ship. So it's checking 24 hours a day. And I make sure that I'm showing up all over the country at position 1. And then basically, now this is where it's a lot harder than the old days, is you got to be careful. Now you're not controlling how many people. Like I said before, I can just tell AZ Rank, hey, 5, 7, 8, you know, like, and that's all that would happen, right? But now you've got to kind of like be watching that all day long, because you can't control, you know, like what if somebody posts your link on social media, it goes viral or something, like
24 hours
too much money. Yeah. You don't sell out your 300 inventory for only $15. I mean, every single one that you're doing at this price, you're losing money, which you have to do when you launch.
Yeah.
So you have to manually be looking at your PPC data to see how many conversions you get for that keyword for that day, and then you pause that target once you hit that. So like if I see my CPR number, which is our number for how many you need to sell after a search over 8 days, if it's like 80, and then I hit 10 for the day, all right, that target I turn off. If my product just goes viral in general, I gotta like stop everything. I gotta raise the price or something, or stop it, or put the inventory to 0, which by the way is another advantage of starting with FBM, is I just put inventory to 0, or I put like 25
and
or
when
20,
it stops, that's it.
Meaning that even if I miss it, it can't go. Even if it goes viral, it's not like I can be cleared out of my whole
20.
inventory because I only put exactly 20. And so basically that's what I'm manually doing over the first 8-10 days, is making sure I hit that number of conversions on PPC for that keyword each day if I can. And then almost always, but if I hit that, by even earlier, like by day 5, day 4, I'm already on page 1 for that keyword.
Yeah, it's pretty much like doing rebate, but with PPC, pretty much.
Yeah. In a way that is 100% terms of service, compliant.
Good. And for everybody listening this, just to clarify the CPR, what you mentioned, you can find this with Helium10, right? It basically tells you how many units you should be giving every day to rank for page 1, right? For the keyword.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So once we do this PPC strategy, and we do, as you said, for 8-10 days or so, when can you actually measure the success of this launch, right? And what are your next steps based on the results? So if you can maybe share some insight, because maybe people is doing it, and then after 10 days, okay, I did the launch, what do I do now? Maybe you can give us some
there's
next
different
steps.
ways. If you're in a very small market like Coffin Shelf or something, that might be it. Like those 8 to 10 days, those are the main keywords you're going to get almost all of your sales from. You might be done. Now everything's maintenance mode. I turn off the sale price. I start sending out, review requests. I make my campaigns maybe a little less aggressive. Have the regular price, maybe start some campaigns for just complementary keywords. Now it's in maintenance mode. But other people are like, okay, those are my first 5 keywords. Now I'm on page 1 there. Now let me rinse and repeat and now do my next 5 to 10 keywords to launch. So there's no one answer there, but yeah, I mean, like if you hit that number and it's been 5 days, then you're going to be on page 1, I'll like almost guarantee. If not, that means there's something wrong going on with the like maybe the number, like maybe there's some abnormally high sales, so it doesn't count for as much. But the reason why I say 5 and we suggest going like 8 to 10 days is because it's not enough to like, sometimes you could be on page 1 by day 2. That doesn't mean, I'm going to stop and I'm not going to stop doing these, because you might fall off like right away. I always suggest doing the full 8 days, even if you already got to page 1 by like day 2 or 3 or 4. I always suggest to keep going to kind of feed the algorithm. But at that point, like you could be, if you're in a niche where there's not much competition, you could be almost, at the top spot just with this strategy alone.
Awesome. And just to start concluding now, I think another thing that I just want to quickly bring to the table, because I feel we might have not discussed that, is the indexation. So yes. I wanted to hear your take on this, because I know before we do all this PPC aggressive strategy and everything, it's very important to make sure that we are indexing for those keywords. Otherwise, maybe PPC might not even show you for those keywords. And I just wanted to hear what are some advice to help with indexation, because sometimes people struggle with that. They don't really know how to track it. So maybe you can give some advice. Yeah.
I mean, the way it's supposed to work is if you have a keyword in your listing, you should be indexed for it. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen 100% of the time for whatever reason, just the Amazon algorithm, maybe the category you're in, whatever. So never assume just because you have the word in your listing that you're indexed for it. So what I do is before I really go full mode, once my listing is active, I just run all the keywords that I want to be indexed for in Index Checker. And then, if I'm not indexed, I try and like add it to like maybe it's my subject matter, or maybe it's the search terms, which are now known as generic keywords, or whatever the case I might. And if it's still not, like there's one last kind of ditch resort in some categories, they have this field called special features. And like that for me, like historically the last 6 months, it's like I put something into special features. within like 2 minutes or less. It's indexed, like no matter how
Oh,
crazy the keyword is.
okay.
And but you have to be careful with that one because you can't keyword stuff because that actually shows up above your
Yeah,
bullet
no,
point.
it doesn't look nice if you
So
keyword stuff. Yeah.
yeah, so it's gonna look terrible on your
If
listing
you
if
put
it's
all
just
the
like
random keywords, yeah.
yeah, put a bunch of random stuff in there. But if you have trouble indexing for a keyword, that will help. It does nothing for ranking. That little filter or that little feature right there. But the special features will help you get indexed for keywords that you, for whatever reason you can't get indexed in another part of your listing.
Awesome. And I know as well, for those people that may be wondering how to do the subject matters, I know you can do that with Helium10, right? With the integration.
Yeah. So there's people who maybe have hacks with flat files and things like that, which definitely I heard still work.
You can do
But
it,
if
yeah.
you're like, I hate flat files, like I don't want to
Everybody, everybody's scared about that. They are very scared about flat
And it's
files.
like just use Helium10 and Listing Builder. We still have a tie-in on the back end in the API to like overwrite subject matter, even if you don't have it, even if you don't see it in Seller Central anymore. We still have it in the back end, and then that'll give you some more like kind of like a ranking relevancy if you use that field.
Awesome. That's great, Bradley. So yeah, I think we cover everything. I mean, I don't know if we're missing something, but is there anything else you feel you want to add to, make sure we take all the gold nuggets from you, as they say?
Yeah, that's just what we talked about is only a small part of everything
for sure.
an Amazon seller should do, but it's a good start, so just like, and again, this is like, it's not like, oh, Bradley's way is the only way to do this. This is just one of many ways that people are using to launch, but I'm sure if you incorporate some or all of these, it'll definitely help. But don't think that this is the entire thing. Like, I'm just gonna go copy what Bradley said in 10 minutes
and make millions.
Make millions of dollars. No, but there's a lot more involved in selling on Amazon. But this is a good start for you.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome, Bradley. So, I mean, I want to thank you. I think this is very valuable for us. I'm pretty sure people are going to enjoy it and implement some of it. And before we conclude, I want to give you, a last minute so you can share how people can reach out to you and, get in contact with Helium10 team if they need to. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anybody can just go to helium10.com and see what we're about. Just like this, I love giving out or having guests on to talk about different perspectives that aren't mine, necessarily. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't, but regardless, I invite people on. So the way to reach out to me, or the best way to kind of like listen to what, kind of knowledge I'm bringing from other guests, is the Serious Sellers podcast. It's on, Spotify.
Recommended. Very good.
Player. Yeah. What'd you say?
Recommended. Very good. I listen that
Thank
to
you.
every week. Yeah.
Thank you. You've been on the Spanish version, right?
Yeah, that's right. With Adriana.
Now we got to make an Italian version, I guess. And I don't know how many other 17 languages you speak, but
no, just three.
Well, German is next. We do have a German podcast. So like, yeah, if you listen to Vincenzo's podcast in the Serious Sellers podcast in Espanol, he's in one of that one there. We have a Serious Sellers podcast auf Deutsch too for German. But that's the best way to reach out to me. That's my Instagram too, Serious Sellers podcast.
Awesome, Bradley. So it's been a pleasure. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have you in the future for the 4th version of the Maldives honeymoon methodology.
And you can go with me and hang out. We'll make it from the Maldives together over there.
100%. So it's been a pleasure, Bradley. So see you in the next one.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.